message, it's kind of cut off, but it's still within the 10 o'clock hour, where she adds, I also just feel concerningly numb right now. Like I have no emotion whatsoever. I feel like I'm going to die and I don't care. What do I do about this?
I do recall that message.
I feel like I'm going to die and I don't care. That sentence, timestamped December 2nd at 10:02 a.m., was typed into a medical portal by Lindsay Clancy. It is an exhibit. It is now a permanent fixture of the public record. And if you close your eyes and imagine the clinical environment where that message was received, you might picture a monitor on a desk inside a quiet office at South Shore Health. A notification appears. A pair of eyes scans those 11 words, and the response that follows isn't a code blue. It isn't a welfare check. It is a textbook definition, a recommendation to double the dose of Seroquel, and a passage from a self-help book titled, This Isn't What I Expected. Imagine a smoke detector designed not to scream when the room is engulfed in flames, but to politely print out a pamphlet explaining the chemical composition of carbon monoxide. That is the structural failure we are dissecting today. Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you're subscribed to Courtroom Verdict Vault. Because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. The testimony from the psychiatric nurse practitioner, Rebecca, lays out a paper trail of unimaginable distress met with systematic normalization. On December 1st, Lindsay Clancy reports, very intrusive thoughts that I never had before.
Okay, so December 1st at 12:20 p.m., we have a message from Lindsay Clancy. Hi, Rebecca. I really don't like the way I feel on the Remeron, and I know that I can't stick with it, or I can't stick with taking it. I started having very intrusive thoughts that I never had before. I didn't take it last night. I would really like to go back to Julie's original plan of Prozac in the morning and using Ativan and Benadryl at night as a Band-Aid until I get to a therapeutic level of Prozac. Please let me know if you agree with this plan. I know that I need to give it a good
The clinical reaction is not an emergency intervention. It is a detailed MyChart message listing the common symptoms of postpartum depression, followed by an encouragement to keep taking the medication that the patient just said she couldn't tolerate.
When she indicated to you in this message on December 1st about having intrusive thoughts and not liking the Remeron and not taking it, what was your response?
I sent her a detailed message of signs and symptoms of postpartum depression and anxiety, including factors like onset, risk factors, predictors, common symptoms, and it highlighted how intrusive thoughts are quite common in postpartum depression and anxiety, and I asked her, I'm wondering if that's what's going on here. I then asked her if she was able to take the Seroquel that night, and if she noticed
This is the irony buried in Exhibit 148 heard.
Was that there are other sources or resources that she could utilize that are available at the clinic, right?
Yes.
And
go ahead. Yep.
Good Moms Have Scary Thoughts, and this one, the Pregnancy Postpartum Anxiety Workbook.
Yes. Yes, I instructed her that we had copies of these books that we were giving out to patients and that she should come grab them when she was in clinic.
A book called Good Moms Have Scary Thoughts. The very title of the book tells the patient she is normal. The timing tells us something else. She wasn't just having scary thoughts. She was broadcasting a system failure in real time, and the medical infrastructure processed her distress as a data point requiring reassurance, not rescue. She wasn't heard. By the morning of December 2nd, the messages accelerate into a controlled scream. I woke up at 1200 with horribly intrusive thoughts of wanting it to be all over.
Beginning at 7:51 a.m., where she sends you a message saying, Hi, Rebecca. I took the 15 Remeron and 25 Seroquel. I woke up at 12 with horribly intrusive thoughts of wanting it to be all over. I took 1 milligram Ativan and went back to sleep, and the thoughts went away now that I have the Ativan on board. I really need to explore the option that I'm addicted to Ativan. I have a therapy appointment with Letitia in your office. I would really like to speak with someone in the substance use clinic to explore the option. Do you recall getting that message?
I do.
Okay. And did you respond to that message?
I did. I am credentialed at South Shore Health in addiction medicine, so I felt that I could be that person to discuss those concerns with her.
Discuss the substance use concerns?
Mm-hmm.
And so,
the nurse practitioner testifies that she felt credentialed to handle the substance use concerns because she holds a certification in addiction medicine. A patient is begging someone to explore whether her brain is chemically unraveling, and the reply is a biochemistry lecture. The provider sends a paragraph distinguishing dependence from addiction, complete with clinical terms like diaphoresis, tachycardia, and perceptual disturbances. Read that again. A woman is saying she is disappearing, and the response is a vocabulary lesson on the difference between tolerance and withdrawal. The portal message becomes,
that concept of dependence versus addiction, what did you say?
I said, I wonder if you fear you're becoming dependent on the benzodiazepines, and there's a subtle difference between dependence and addiction. With addiction, there's a change in behavior caused by biochemical changes in the brain after continued substance abuse. The substance use becomes the main priority of the person with the substance use disorder, regardless of the harm it causes to themselves or others. With dependence, we're referring to physical dependence on a substance characterized by symptoms of tolerance. Characterized by symptoms of tolerance and withdrawal. Benzodiazepine withdrawal is similar to alcohol withdrawal symptoms. We would be seeing things like elevated vital signs, high blood pressure, tachycardia, diaphoresis, mild alteration of mental status, initially with a possibility of perceptual disturbances, delirium.
A wall of text, an academic fortress built between a caregiver and a cry for help. She wasn't heard.
She did.
And so at 9:04 on December 2nd, there's a response from Lindsay Clancy. I'm willing to try anything. I just keep coming back to the feeling that I'm dependent on Ativan after my 2.5 weeks of taking it daily with Benadryl, following the bad reaction to Zoloft. I feel addicted to it, and I feel like I'm not being heard, that is a possibility. I feel like we are throwing all these different meds at my insomnia when the root cause is Ativan dependence. I don't feel any of the anxious thoughts I had before. I feel completely numb. So you got that message from her at 9:04, correct?
I did.
And what was your concern when you got that message, or did you have any concern?
Then comes the inflection point where reasonable medical deference ends and a ticking clock begins. At 10:02 a.m., she types, I feel completely numb. I feel like I'm going to die and I care. What do I do about this? Under cross-examination, the nurse confirms she did not interpret this as suicidal ideation. She did not tell her to go to the emergency room. She did not escalate to a higher level of care.
When she sent that message to you, did you respond back to her at 11:35?
I did.
And with the fact that she talked about being numb and having no emotions, feel like I'm going to die and don't care, what did you do?
I said, this sounds like depression and anhedonia symptoms. I would say if you're feeling unsafe, particularly as we head into the weekend, it is important for you to have information for psych emergency services available to you. And I provided a list of the 24-hour emergency service programs like mobile crisis intervention.
Okay. And when you say anhedonia, excuse me if I mispronounced that, what does that mean?
Anhedonia is a symptom of depression where people are unable to feel pleasure. You might describe it as feeling numb. They're unable to look forward to things.
Okay. And in her message where she says, I feel like I'm going to die and I don't care, did you take that as a suicidal thought or suicidal ideation?
No.
And so did you tell her to go to the ER right away?
No.
Okay. Did you have concerns that she needed to get a higher level of care at that moment when she sent that message?
She provided a list of 24-hour emergency service numbers and suggested reaching out to her support system. The patient had already said her parents were home. The provider knew she had just left a therapy appointment, and the clinical analysis was that this sounded like anhedonia, a symptom of depression involving the inability to feel.
What does that mean?
Anhedonia is a symptom of depression where people are unable to feel pleasure. You might describe it as feeling numb. They're unable to look forward to things.
And in her message where she says, I feel like I'm going to die and I don't care, did you take that as a suicidal thought or suicidal ideation?
No.
And so did you tell her to go to the ER right away?
No.
Okay. Did you have concerns that she needed to get a higher level of care at that moment when she sent that message?
Pleasure. But let us sit with that distinction for a moment. If a patient tells you they feel nothing, that they anticipate dying, and that the anticipation produces no emotional response, at what point does the refusal to label that as suicidal ideation become a distinction without a difference? At what point does the clinical charting of a symptom detach so completely from the human being that the symptom is treated while the human is lost? Here is the thriller question. When a medical system is given a clear distress signal and responds only with information, how close is the gap between that failure and a tragedy that was never inevitable, only preventable? She wasn't heard. The final exchange in the record is disorienting in its false optimism. At 12:12 p.m., the nurse sends a passage from a book in the Word.
Correct. I said it sounds more like depression than side effects. It's not uncommon for me to hear, I've never felt anything like this before, or I just don't feel like myself. All of this sounds like postpartum depression.
And did you further try to give her some encouraging words?
I shared a passage from a book called This Isn't What I Expected.
And is that book kind of centered around postpartum depression?
Yes.
And did you also tell her this is going to get better?
I said, even though they feel terrible, remember that they're symptoms of an illness that is very real and very treatable. This is going to get better.
This is going to get better. At 2:35 p.m., she promises, "We will follow you closely." No one was following her closely. An emergency appointment with her primary care office had already been missed the day prior because the callback came too late. The nurse practitioner had no scheduled appointment with her.
December 1st.
It was.
And were you aware that that same day that Lindsay had reached out to her primary care physician asking for an immediate appointment with her nurse practitioner?
I was.
And that she was looking to discuss medications?
Yes.
Do you know if she actually got an appointment or went to the appointment there?
They had reached out to her, and she did not respond to their voicemails or my chart messages, so she did not see them that day, to my knowledge.
So you're able to review the notes from the network of South Shore Health, right?
Correct, yes.
So you were able to review that she asked for an emergency appointment. They were able to find her an emergency appointment. But
The plan that day was to increase Seroquel to 50 milligrams, continue Remeron, add Prozac, and use Ativan strategically to prove she wasn't addicted. A polypharmacy strategy administered through a messaging app. The patient's final recorded words in this exchange are surrender. Thank you. I'll stick with that plan. I really hope it works. That is the voice of someone.
And then at 1:40 p.m., she responds, "Thank you. I'll stick with that plan. I really hope it works and to feel like myself soon." Right?
Yes.
And then at 2:35, you respond, we will follow you closely. We have lots of alternatives. If this for some reason isn't the combination, we'll find one that gets you back to feeling like yourself.
I did say that, yes.
In all your treatment of women, the women that you've treated with postpartum depression, is this common that you have to kind of...
Who has stopped fighting the machine she begged to fix her. The public record from this trial includes the specific MyChart message logs entered into evidence. You can find them referenced under the testimony of the treating psychiatric nurse practitioner. Go read those timestamps yourself. Look at the gap between the 2 a.m. message and the response. Look at what was said and what was never asked. Then come back to the comments and answer this. In a system where emergency services exist specifically to intercept a crisis, at what precise moment did a declaration of dying become just another piece of data to be managed? If you believe the evidence deserves to be seen and not just summarized like this video, share it, subscribe to Courtroom Verdict Vault, and turn on notifications. We follow the paper trail.